They thought the wedding invitation was their chance to look good in front of everyone. Instead, they opened legal papers demanding $127,000. And when they found out who was standing beside me, their world collapsed. If you've ever been treated like you owe your parents everything just for existing, hit subscribe. By the end of this story, you'll see exactly how I turned years of silent sacrifice into the sweetest revenge they never saw coming. My name is Madison Chen, and for 28 years, I was the invisible daughter. Not because I wasn't there, I was always there. Paying bills, covering emergencies, sacrificing my dreams so my little brother Ryan could have his. I was invisible because being seen would have meant they'd have to acknowledge what I gave up, and acknowledging it would have meant feeling guilty. So instead, they chose to forget. It started when I was 16. My parents came to this country with nothing, built a small life, and poured every ounce of their hope into one basket: Ryan. He was 4 years younger, charming, and in their eyes, destined for greatness. Me? I was the safety net, the backup plan, the one who could handle herself. When Ryan needed SAT prep courses, I worked weekends at a coffee shop. When he wanted to join the debate team with its expensive travel costs, I picked up a second job at the mall. By the time I was 18, I'd given up a partial scholarship to UC Berkeley because staying local meant I could work full-time and send money home. Ryan needed private college counseling. Ryan needed a new laptop. Ryan needed. And I gave. Because that's what good daughters do, right? That's what family means. At 19, I handed over $15,000, my entire savings, to pay off my parents' credit card debt. They'd overspent on Ryan's college application process, hiring consultants and visiting campuses across the country. My mom cried when I gave her the check. She said, "You're such a good girl, Madison. We'll pay you back." They never did. At 22, I broke up with Daniel, my boyfriend of 3 years. We'd been planning to move to Portland together, start fresh, maybe even get engaged. But Ryan needed $30,000 to launch his first startup, some app idea that never went anywhere. My parents begged. "Just this once," my dad said. "He's so close to success." So I emptied my moving fund, my emergency savings, everything. Daniel left without me. Last I heard, he's married with a kid now. At 25, my mom needed surgery. The insurance didn't cover everything, and they were short $18,000. I took out a loan against my car, worked double shifts at the bank where I'd finally landed a decent job as a manager, paid it off in 18 months, barely sleeping, living on ramen and grocery store rotisserie chickens. 12 years, $127,000. I kept every receipt, every bank transfer record, every text message asking for just a little help. Not because I planned to use them, but because some part of me, the part that was tired of being invisible, wanted proof that I existed, that I mattered. Ryan, meanwhile, sailed through life like a golden child on a yacht. He graduated from USC with a business degree funded entirely by my sacrifices, though he told everyone he worked his way through college. His first startup failed, then his second. Each time, my parents called it a learning experience and asked me to help fund the next attempt. I did, because what else could I do? Say no and be the selfish one? 6 months ago, everything changed. Ryan met Amber. Amber was the daughter of a real estate developer in Orange County. Her family lived in one of those gated communities where every house looks like a Mediterranean villa and the HOA fees cost more than my rent. She was beautiful, polished, and from a world where people didn't worry about whether they could afford both gas and groceries in the same week. Ryan fell hard, and fast. Within 2 months, they were engaged. Within 3, my parents had transformed into completely different people. Suddenly, our modest family dinners weren't good enough. Mom started shopping at Whole Foods instead of the Asian market she'd sworn by for 30 years. Dad traded his comfortable old Camry for a leased BMW he could barely afford. They were desperate to fit into Amber's world, to prove they belonged at the table with people who summered in Napa and wintered in Aspen. And me? I became a problem. It started subtly. At family dinners, when Amber was there, my parents would steer conversations away from me. If I mentioned work, my mom would quickly change the subject to Ryan's latest business idea. If I shared something I was proud of, like finally getting promoted to regional manager, my dad would nod politely and then ask Amber about her interior design projects. Ryan stopped mentioning me entirely in conversations with Amber's family. I found out later he'd told them he was essentially an only child because I lived far away and we weren't close. I lived 20 minutes from him. The breaking point came 3 months before the wedding. My parents called a family meeting. The moment I walked in and saw everyone already seated, Ryan, Amber, Mom, Dad, I knew something was wrong. No one made eye contact. Ryan cleared his throat. "Madison, we need to talk about the wedding." My stomach dropped. I'd already assumed I'd be in the wedding party. Not maid of honor, that was Amber's sister, but at least a bridesmaid. I'd been mentally budgeting for the dress. Amber smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "We're keeping it intimate, very upscale, very curated, just immediate family and, well, people who fit the aesthetic we're going for." I stared at her, then at Ryan, then at my parents. "What does that mean?" I asked. My mother looked at her hands. "Madison, you have to understand. Amber's family has certain expectations. The venue is very exclusive. $500 a plate," Amber added, like that explained everything. "And we don't want you to feel uncomfortable," Ryan said. He still couldn't look at me. "You know, around all these successful people, CEOs, investors, that kind of crowd. It might be awkward for you." The words hit like a physical blow. Uncomfortable, awkward, for me. "So I'm not invited," I said flatly. "You can see the photos," my dad offered weakly. "We'll send you pictures." I looked at my brother, the brother whose entire life I'd funded, and waited for him to say something. Anything. An apology. A defense. A moment of backbone. He said nothing. "I understand," I heard myself say. My voice sounded far away. "I wouldn't want to embarrass anyone." I left that night and didn't cry. I was too angry to cry, too stunned. I drove home and sat in my car in the parking lot of my apartment complex for 2 hours, hands gripping the steering wheel, replaying every sacrifice I'd made, every dream I'd deferred, every dollar I'd given. And then I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd kept for years, the receipts, the bank records, the text messages, 12 years of proof. I paid for this wedding, I thought. And I'm not even invited. 2 weeks later, things got worse. Amber's parents hosted a family barbecue. "Just casual," they'd said. My mom called and asked me to come. "It's family," she insisted. "You should be there." I should have known better, but some stupid part of me hoped maybe they'd had a change of heart. Maybe they'd realized how cruel they'd been. Maybe this was an olive branch. I dressed carefully, nothing too fancy. Amber had mentioned casual, but nice enough to show I'd made an effort. When I arrived at the sprawling backyard with its infinity pool and outdoor kitchen that cost more than my annual salary, I realized my mistake. This wasn't casual. There were at least 60 people there. Amber's extended family, Ryan's college friends, business associates. Everyone dressed in that effortless, expensive way where casual meant designer jeans and Italian leather sandals. And then I saw the seating arrangements. Long tables covered in white linens were arranged throughout the yard. Place cards marked each seat. I found mine at a small folding table in the corner near the fence. The kids' table where 3 teenagers were already slouched in their chairs, scrolling their phones. I stood there, place card in hand, feeling heat creep up my neck. "Oh, honey," Amber's mother appeared beside me, her smile sympathetic but firm. "The main tables are for the wedding party and sponsors, you understand." Sponsors, they'd actually used that word, like this was a charity gala and not a family gathering. I turned to find Ryan. He was at the head table, laughing at something Amber's father said. He saw me. I know he saw me because his laughter faltered for half a second before he deliberately looked away. I sat at the kids' table. One of the teenagers offered me a sympathetic look. "Adults are weird," she muttered. After dinner, Amber's father stood to give a toast. He was a big man with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no, holding his wine glass high. "To Ryan," he announced, "who pulled himself up, worked hard, and made it on his own. That's the kind of man we want in this family. Self-made, no handouts, just pure determination." The crowd applauded. Ryan stood, accepting handshakes and backpats. He was glowing. Self-made, no handouts. I thought about the $15,000 that paid off his parents' debt so he could go to college, the $30,000 for his failed startup, the countless smaller amounts, textbooks, rent deposits, car repairs, the years I'd worked 2 jobs while he found himself. My chest felt tight. I couldn't breathe. "Madison!" I looked up. One of Amber's aunts had approached the kids' table, her curiosity barely masked by politeness. "So, what do you do, dear?" Before I could answer, Ryan appeared. He must have been listening. "She's between jobs right now," he said quickly. "Retail mostly, figuring things out." The aunt's expression shifted to pity. "Oh, well, everyone has their own path." "I'm a regional manager," I said, finding my voice. "For a major retail chain. I oversee 6 locations." Amber materialized beside Ryan, linking her arm through his. "Oh, that's sweet," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Very humble. Not everyone needs a big career, right? Some people are just content with simple lives." A few people nearby chuckled. Not cruel laughter exactly, just the knowing amusement of people who'd never had to struggle, looking at someone they assumed always had. I stood up. My hands were shaking. "Excuse me," I said. "I need to leave." No one tried to stop me. I drove home in complete silence. No music, no tears, just silence and a growing rage that felt like fire in my chest. When I got to my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat on my couch in the dark, pulled out my laptop, and opened that folder again. All those receipts, all those records, all that proof, and I thought, they don't get to erase me. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Madison Chen?" The voice was male, professional, with the faintest hint of an accent I couldn't place. "The Madison Chen who worked at Coastal Community Bank in 2019? I froze. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Elias Park. We met briefly 5 years ago. You helped me when nobody else would. I'd like to return the favor." The name meant nothing to me. I said so. "Let me refresh your memory," he said. "You stayed late one night to help me restructure a business loan application. I was 26, desperate, trying to save my mother. Every bank had turned me down. You couldn't officially approve anything, but you spent 3 hours showing me how to make my application work. You connected me with a loan officer at another bank. That loan saved my mother's life and launched my company." Fragments of memory surfaced. A young man, stressed and exhausted, sitting across from me at the bank after hours. I'd been working late anyway, processing paperwork. He'd looked so defeated. I remembered thinking how much he reminded me of myself, someone carrying the weight of family on their shoulders. "I remember," I said slowly. "You sent me a thank you card. I said I'd repay your kindness someday. I meant it." He paused. "Madison, my company went public 4 months ago. I'm worth $180 million now, and I've been following your career. I saw your brother's engagement announcement in the society pages last month. My blood went cold. Why were you looking?" "Because I never forgot what you did for me, and when I saw that announcement, I got curious. I did some research." His voice softened. "Madison, I know what you've done for your family. I know what they've taken from you, and I know they're getting married without you." I should have hung up, should have told him to mind his business. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Why do you care?" "Because you saw me as a human being when I had nothing, when I was invisible. Now I see you the same way." He let that sink in. "I want to help you get what you deserve, and I think I know how to make them see you too." "I'm not invited to the wedding," I said bitterly. "Oh, you will be," Elias said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Trust me, But first, I need to ask, do you have documentation? Records of everything you've given them? Every single dollar, I said. 12 years worth. Perfect. Then here's what we're going to do. We talked for 2 hours. By the end of the call, I had a plan. A real plan. Not just anger and hurt, but an actual strategy. 3 days later, Elias and I met in person for the first time in 5 years. He looked different, more polished, more confident, but his eyes were the same. Kind, direct, seeing. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. "Thank you for remembering me," I replied. We spent the next month building the case. Elias connected me with his legal team, not lawyers, corporate attorneys from a firm that cost more per hour than I made in a week. They reviewed every document I'd saved, every receipt, every transfer, every text message asking for "just a little help, Madison." They built it into an ironclad loan agreement. Every dollar I'd given my family, categorized as informal family loans. Total, $127,000. With reasonable interest over 10 years, $147,691. "This is legally sound," the lead attorney told me. "If they don't contest within 30 days, it's considered accepted. And if they do contest, we have documentation that would hold up in any court." "Will they contest?" I asked. "Probably, but they'll lose. And they'll know they'll lose once they show these documents to any lawyer." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. We'd send them a beautiful envelope, exactly like a wedding invitation. Inside, an invitation to Elias's intimate ceremony, and underneath, the legal papers. One note: "Since I wasn't good enough for your celebration, I'm having my own. This is what you owe me for making it possible." "Are you sure?" Elias asked me the night before we sent it. "Once we do this, there's no going back. Your relationship with your family will never be the same." I looked at him. This man who'd become something more than an ally over the past month. Someone who understood what it meant to be invisible, to be used, to be forgotten. "It's already not the same," I said. "They made sure of that when they chose embarrassment over love. I'm just choosing myself for once." He nodded. "Then let's make them see you." The envelope was hand-delivered by courier on a Wednesday afternoon. I knew because Elias had arranged for a timestamp. I imagined my parents at the dining room table, the same table where they'd told me I wasn't good enough for Ryan's wedding, opening what they thought was a beautiful invitation. I imagined my mother's face going white as she read the legal papers. I imagined my father's hands shaking as he realized what he was holding. I imagined Ryan getting the panicked phone call, rushing over, seeing his perfect life start to crack. My phone started ringing 20 minutes after delivery. My mother, then my father, then Ryan, then my mother again. 47 missed calls in 2 hours. The text messages ranged from rage to manipulation. "How dare you do this to your family? We're your parents. You owe us respect. This is illegal." It wasn't. "You're destroying this family. Please, Madison, let's talk about this." "You're being selfish. After everything we did for you." I didn't answer any of them. Elias had advised me not to. "Let them panic," he'd said. "Let them feel what you felt. Let them realize their actions have consequences." So I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on my balcony watching the sunset. For the first time in 12 years, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long I'd almost forgotten what it was called. Freedom. 3 days later, they demanded an emergency family meeting. My father's text was curt. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., our house. This ends now." I texted back one word. Agreed. But I didn't show up alone. When I pulled up to my parents' house the next day, Elias was beside me in his Tesla. Understated but unmistakably expensive. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, but somehow he made it look effortless. "Ready?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "Ready." My parents' faces when they opened the door were a mixture of shock and fury. My mother's eyes were red from crying. My father's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. "Who is this?" my father demanded, looking at Elias. Elias extended his hand with perfect professionalism. "Elias Park, CEO of Next Gen Solutions. I'm Madison's legal representative." He paused, then added with a slight smile, "And her fiancé." The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan, who'd been standing in the living room, pulled out his phone immediately. I watched his face change as he Googled the name. His eyes widened. Holy! Ryan caught himself. You were just in Forbes, the tech IPO. Your company is worth $1.8 billion, Elias said calmly. I'm personally worth about $180 million, give or take. My mother actually stumbled backward. My father's face went from red to pale. But the real interesting part, Elias continued, walking into the living room like he owned it, is that NextGen just entered a major partnership with a real estate development company in Orange County. You might know them, Robert Harrison's firm. Ryan's face went absolutely white. Amber's father. That's right, Elias said. Robert and I are finalizing a $50 million project together. We've become quite close over the past few months. We talk regularly. He sat down on the couch, completely at ease. In fact, he called me yesterday. He's concerned about family character, specifically about families who exploit their children. The trap closed with an audible snap. My father tried to recover first. This is between family. You have no right to interfere in... Elias held up one hand, his expression remaining polite, but his voice turning ice cold. I have every right. Madison is my future wife. That makes this my business, and your son's future father-in-law is my business partner. So yes, Mr. Chin, I absolutely have the right to be here. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase and placed it on the coffee table. You have two choices. Option 1. Sign the repayment agreement, $1,200 a month for 10 years. Payments begin the month after the wedding. Very reasonable terms considering the total with interest is $147,691. My mother gasped. That's insane! We don't have that kind of money. Then you should have thought about that before spending Madison's money, Elias said simply. Option 2. Contest this in court. I have 6 attorneys ready to proceed. We'll win. The documentation is flawless, and then the story goes public. Every detail, every dollar, every time you made your daughter sacrifice so your son could have everything. You wouldn't, Ryan said, but his voice cracked. Try me. Elias leaned back. And here's the thing about option 2, Ryan. If we go to court, that $50 million deal with your future father-in-law, it dies, because I'm not doing business with a family that treats their daughter like an ATM machine. Robert Harrison is already asking questions. One phone call from me and your perfect wedding, your perfect life, your perfect image, all of it crumbles. The room fell silent except for my mother's quiet crying. Ryan's face had gone through several shades of panic. Madison, please, don't do this to me. Amber's family they'll destroy me if this deal falls through. I spoke for the first time since entering the house. You did this to yourself, Ryan. You had 12 years to say thank you, 12 years to acknowledge what I gave up for you. Instead, you were ashamed of me. You let your fiancée and her family mock me. You stood there at that barbecue and let them treat me like I was nothing. I didn't. You did. My voice was steady now, strong. You told them I was between jobs when you know I've worked my way up to regional manager. You let them seat me at the kids' table. You smiled while your future father-in-law praised you for being self-made. I stood up, and suddenly I felt taller than I'd ever felt in this house. I made you, Ryan. Every opportunity you had came from me, and the moment you got what you wanted, you threw me away. My father finally found his voice. You're punishing us for protecting our son's future. No, I said quietly. I'm protecting mine. My mother tried a different approach, her voice breaking. I'm so stressed I might have a heart attack. You're going to kill your own mother over money? Elias pulled out his phone. Would you like me to call an ambulance? I'll pay for it. He paused. And add it to the debt. My father's hands balled into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to hit someone. Instead, he turned on me. This is what America does to children. Makes them forget family loyalty. Forget respect. Respect is earned, I said. And you lost mine when you decided I wasn't good enough to be seen at my brother's wedding. Ryan tried again, his desperation showing. Madison, I'll make it right. I'll talk to Amber. We'll invite you to the wedding. You can come. You can sit wherever you want. Now you want me there? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Now that your perfect life is at risk? Where was this generosity 2 weeks ago? Where was it at the barbecue when I was sitting alone while you accepted praise for being self-made? I'll tell them the truth, Ryan said. I'll tell everyone you helped me. I'll give you credit. It's too late for that. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not my little brother but a stranger. Someone who'd taken everything and given nothing. Someone who'd let me be erased because it was convenient. You made your choice, Ryan. You chose your image over your family, over me. Now you get to live with the consequences. My father took a step toward Elias, his face red with rage. You think you can come into my house and threaten my family? Elias didn't flinch. He pointed calmly to the doorbell camera visible through the front window. Touch me, and this becomes assault. I have security footage. Try it. The threat hung in the air. My father's hand trembled, but he stepped back. Elias pulled out a formal contract from his briefcase. You have 48 hours to decide. Sign the repayment agreement, or we proceed to court. There is no third option. There is no negotiation. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Choose wisely. I walked toward the door without looking back, but at the threshold, I stopped. For the record, I said, my voice carrying across the living room, I would have forgiven everything, every dollar, every sacrifice, every moment you forgot I existed. All you had to do was see me. Actually see me. But you couldn't even do that. You saw me as a resource, as a bank account with legs. And when I stopped being useful, I stopped being family. My mother's sobs grew louder. Madison, please. You have 48 hours, I repeated. Then I left, Elias beside me, closing the door on 12 years of being invisible. In the car, my hands finally started shaking. The adrenaline crashed through me all at once. You okay? Elias asked gently. I don't know, I admitted. Is it supposed to feel like this? Like what? Like freedom and grief at the same time? He reached over and squeezed my hand. Yes, that's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. The next 36 hours were chaos. My phone exploded with messages from extended family members who'd somehow heard about the situation. Some supported me, most condemned me. Aunt Linda called me ungrateful. Uncle James said I was tearing the family apart. Cousin Michelle sent a long text about forgiveness and honoring your parents. I blocked them all, but late that night, I got one message that made me pause. From my maternal grandmother. Your grandfather and I always knew they treated you unfairly. We saw it, but didn't know how to stop it. We're proud of you for finally standing up. Some families must be loved from a distance. We support your decision. I cried for the first time since this started. Not sad tears. Something else. Relief, maybe. Validation. Meanwhile, Ryan's world was imploding. I didn't hear this directly. I'd blocked my immediate family, but mutual friends filled in the gaps. Amber's father had called Ryan. Word had gotten out, probably through Elias, though he never admitted it, about the family situation. Robert Harrison was not pleased. He'd built his company on image and integrity, and the idea that his future son-in-law had been funded by a sister he'd essentially disowned didn't sit well. Is it true? Robert had demanded. Did your sister pay for your education? Your business attempts? Did you let us insult her while knowing she'd sacrificed everything for you? Ryan had no good answer. Amber, according to friends, was devastated. Not because Ryan had been helped. Lots of people get family support. But because he'd lied. He'd constructed an entire false narrative about being self-made, about struggling and succeeding on his own merit. And when that narrative crumbled, so did her trust. How can I marry someone who lies about something this fundamental? She'd reportedly said. Their first major fight happened 2 days before the wedding, over money, over character, over the foundation their entire relationship had been built on. And then there was the social media situation. Someone, A cousin who'd witnessed the barbecue situation had posted a vague story on Instagram. No names, but enough details that anyone who knew our family could connect the dots. "Funny how the golden child forgets who built his golden cage." The comments exploded. People who'd known our family for years started piecing things together. Suddenly, questions were being asked. Whispers started in our community. On hour 46, with 2 hours left before the deadline, my father called. Not my mother, not Ryan. Him. I stared at the screen, debating. Elias, sitting beside me in his condo where I'd been staying, raised an eyebrow. "Your call. Literally," I answered. "Yes?" "We'll sign." His voice was defeated, broken. "We can't afford a lawyer. We can't afford to lose the deal. We can't afford to lose everything." "Smart choice," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "You're destroying this family." His anger flickered back to life. "You know that, right? You're tearing us apart." "No, Dad. You did that 12 years ago when you decided one child mattered more than the other. I'm just asking for what's mine." "You were always so good at keeping score," he said bitterly. "I kept records because I had to, because I knew that one day you'd forget. You'd act like none of it ever happened, like I never mattered." I took a breath. "The meeting is tomorrow at 10 a.m., Elias's attorney's office. Don't be late." I hung up. The next morning, we all gathered in a sleek conference room downtown. The law offices of Park & Associates occupied the entire 23rd floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. My parents looked small and out of place in this world of marble and mahogany. Ryan was there too, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Amber wasn't with him. The attorney, a sharp woman named Catherine Liu, laid out the documents with professional efficiency. The repayment agreement, the full accounting of all funds provided, the terms. "This is a legally binding contract," she explained. "First payment due 30 days from today. $1,200 on the first of every month for 10 years. Miss Chen reserves the right to waive any remaining balance at her discretion, but you have no right to request forgiveness of debt." My mother's hand shook as she picked up the pen. I never thought my own daughter would sue me. "I'm not suing you," I said quietly. "I'm asking you to pay back what you borrowed. That's all. If Ryan had borrowed this money from a bank, you wouldn't think twice about paying it back." "But you're not a bank," my father said coldly. "You're family." "Exactly. I'm family, and you treated me worse than a bank ever would. A bank would at least say thank you." The signing took 15 minutes. Catherine witnessed everything, made copies, filed the documents. It was done. As my parents stood to leave, my mother tried one final appeal. "Please, Madison, forgive us. Don't let it end like this." I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the gray in her hair that hadn't been there a year ago, the lines around her eyes, the way her hands trembled. Part of me wanted to cave, to say it was okay, to be the good daughter one more time. But then I remembered sitting at the kids' table, remembered Ryan accepting praise for being self-made, remembered being called between jobs and humble and told I didn't fit the aesthetic. "I forgave you every time you asked me to sacrifice something," I said. "Every time you needed money, every time you chose Ryan over me. I forgave it all because that's what family does. But this isn't about forgiveness anymore. This is about balance, about recognizing that my life has value too." My father threw his copy of the papers on the table. "You're no longer my daughter." The words should have hurt. Maybe they would later, but in that moment, I felt nothing but relief. "I stopped being your daughter when I became your ATM," I said. "The only difference now is that I'm finally admitting it out loud." They left without another word. Ryan lingered at the door. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "For what it's worth. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I am sorry." "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "But sorry doesn't change anything. Sorry doesn't give me back 12 years. Sorry doesn't erase what you let them do to me." He nodded and left. Elias put his arm around my shoulders. "How do you feel?" "Like I can finally breathe," I said. The wedding happened 5 days later. I didn't attend, obviously, but I heard about it through the grapevine. and social media posts I definitely didn't stalk but somehow saw anyway. The guest list had shrunk from 200 to 140. Three of my aunts and uncles, the ones who'd actually witnessed how I'd been treated over the years, quietly declined their invitations. Their absence was noted, whispered about. The ceremony was beautiful according to the photos. Amber looked stunning. Ryan looked nervous. My parents looked older than their years. But something was off. You could see it in the pictures if you looked closely. The smiles didn't quite reach the eyes. The body language was stiff. Amber's family was there, but the warmth that had been present in earlier photos, from the engagement party, from family gatherings, was missing. During the reception, Ryan gave a speech. Someone posted a video clip. He thanked his parents, thanked Amber's family, talked about hard work and perseverance. Then, at the very end, his voice cracked. "And I want to acknowledge someone who isn't here tonight but should be. My sister Madison. She gave more to this family than I ever acknowledged. And I'm sorry she's not here to celebrate with us." Too little, too late. But at least it was something. The honeymoon trip to Bora Bora got postponed. Budget adjustments. Amber posted vaguely on Instagram. What she didn't post was that her father had reduced their wedding gift from $50,000 to $10,000. "Until I see character improvement," Robert had told Ryan privately. The $50 million deal between Elias and Robert's company proceeded, but the relationship had cooled. Robert Harrison didn't like being lied to, and Ryan's deception, letting his sister be mocked while accepting praise for achievements she'd funded, sat poorly with a man who valued integrity. Ryan and Amber's first married fight was about money, specifically about the $1,200 that had to be paid to me every month. Ryan offered to help his parents make the payments. Amber refused. "Your mess, not mine," she'd said, according to a mutual friend who'd had coffee with Amber. "I didn't sign up to pay your sister back for the education you pretended you'd earned yourself." Within 2 months, they were sleeping in separate bedrooms. Meanwhile, my life transformed in ways I hadn't expected. With the emotional weight lifted, I stopped just surviving and started thriving. At work, I was promoted again, this time to a senior regional position overseeing 12 locations across 2 states. 6-figure salary, benefits, a future that was actually mine. Elias and I grew closer. What had started as a business arrangement, his desire to repay a kindness, my need for support in confronting my family, had evolved into something real. He understood what it meant to carry the weight of family expectations, to be invisible until you were needed, to give everything and receive nothing in return. "You know," he said one evening as we cooked dinner together in his kitchen, "I fell in love with you the night you walked away from that family meeting. You were so strong, so clear about your worth. I'd never seen anyone stand up for themselves like that. I fell for you when you didn't flinch when my father tried to intimidate you," I admitted. "You saw me, really saw me. Not as a problem to be solved or a resource to be used. Just me." 6 months after the wedding, Elias proposed. Actually proposed. The papers had listed us as engaged, but that had been part of the strategy. This time, he got down on one knee in the same park where we'd had our first real date. "Madison Chen," he said, "you taught me that kindness isn't weakness, that setting boundaries is strength, that sometimes the family you choose matters more than the family you're born into. Will you marry me?" The ring was simple, elegant, engraved inside, "You saw me when I was invisible." I said yes. We planned a small wedding, 30 people. Only people who'd actually supported us, who saw us as whole human beings rather than resources or assets. My grandmother was there, beaming. Elias's mother, who'd survived her illness and built a beautiful relationship with me. Friends who'd stood by me when my family hadn't. No one from my immediate family received an invitation. The night before the wedding, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Madison," she said, and her voice was fragile. Broken. "I know I have no right to ask, but can I come tomorrow, just to see you get married? I won't cause trouble, I want to see my daughter be happy." I was quiet for a long moment. Elias, who'd been listening, left the room to give me privacy. "Mom," I said finally, "do you know why I'm happy?" Because you found someone good. No, I'm happy because I finally chose myself. Because I stopped waiting for you to see me and started seeing myself. Because I let go of the fantasy that you'd wake up one day and realize what you'd done. I took a breath. You can't come to the wedding. Not because I hate you, but because this day is about celebrating love that's real. Love that doesn't come with conditions or scorecards or invisible price tags. And we never had that. She started crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I failed you. I know I chose wrong. I didn't know how to do better. Maybe not, I said. But you could have tried. You could have noticed. You could have said thank you. You could have stood up for me just once. My voice caught. I needed a mother, Mom, not a manager. Not someone who saw me as a solution to Ryan's problems. Just a mother who loved me enough to protect me instead of use me. I did love you, she whispered. I know. But you loved yourselves more. You loved your image more. You loved Ryan's success more. And that love had limits. Mine didn't. That was the problem. I hung up gently, not in anger, just in finality. The wedding was perfect, small and intimate and filled with laughter and joy. Elias's vows made everyone cry. You saw me when I had nothing and helped me anyway. Now I promise to see you every day for the rest of our lives, to celebrate you, to protect you, to love you without conditions or scorecards. You'll never be invisible again. My vows were simpler. You gave me permission to matter, to take up space, to choose myself. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. I promise to honor that gift by living fully, loving completely, and never forgetting my worth again. During the reception, my grandmother pulled me aside. She pressed a small envelope into my hands. Your grandfather and I have been saving this, she said. $20,000. We want you to have it. Not for bills or emergencies. For joy. Take a honeymoon. Buy something frivolous. Live your life. I started to protest. She stopped me. Your parents got their wedding gift from us 30 years ago. Ryan got his when he graduated. This is yours. It's not payment for what you gave them. It's celebration of who you became, despite them. I hugged her tight, feeling her tiny frame shake with emotion. Later, a package arrived at the venue. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting on the label. Inside was an old photo album from my childhood. Pictures of me at every age. Birthday parties, school plays, holidays. Always smiling, always giving, always there. A note in my mother's handwriting. I'm sorry we failed you. We don't ask for forgiveness. We just want you to remember we did love you, even if we loved ourselves more. I looked at those pictures, at the young girl who'd given everything, who'd believed that love meant sacrifice without recognition, and I felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding and closure. I put the album in a box. Someday, maybe I'd look through it again. But not today. Today was about the future, not the past. Elias found me on the balcony of the venue, looking out at the city lights. You okay? He asked, slipping his arm around my waist. Yeah, I said, and I meant it. I was just thinking about something my grandmother said once. She told me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. That distance doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to stop accepting less than you deserve. Wise woman. The wisest. I leaned into him. Do you ever regret it? Getting involved in all this? Not even for a second. He kissed my temple. You gave me a second chance at life when I had nothing. Helping you reclaim yours was the least I could do. We saved each other, I said. Yeah, he agreed. We did. 1 year later, life had settled into something I'd never experienced before. Peace. Ryan and Amber's marriage was struggling. The trust broken during those early revelations never fully healed. They were in couples therapy, according to mutual friends. Ryan had started another business venture, but this time without family funding. He was working 3 jobs to keep it afloat, learning what struggle actually felt like. My parents were making their payments. Every month, $1,200 appeared in my account. Not once had they missed or been late. Pride, maybe, or fear that I'd actually take them to court if they defaulted. Either way, they paid. They'd tried to reach out a few times. Birthday cards that I left unopened, Christmas gifts I donated, a letter that I read once and then filed away. They wanted reconciliation on their terms, where we'd all pretend the past didn't matter and move forward as though nothing had happened. I wasn't interested in that kind of forgiveness, but I wasn't consumed by anger either. I'd gone to therapy, worked through the grief and resentment, learned to set boundaries without guilt. My therapist said I was one of the healthiest people she'd seen in terms of family estrangement. "You don't hate them," she observed, "but you also don't need them. That's actually quite rare." She was right. I didn't hate my parents or Ryan. I just didn't need their validation anymore. I'd found it in myself, in Elias, in the life we were building. Elias and I bought a house, not huge, not flashy, but ours, with a garden where I could grow tomatoes and a home office where I could work. We adopted a dog, a rescue mutt named Charlie who'd been overlooked at the shelter for being too plain. We knew what that felt like. My career continued to flourish. I was being considered for a vice president position, something I never would have pursued when I was drowning in family obligations. And then, 8 months after our wedding, my grandmother passed away. She was 92, lived a full life, and died peacefully in her sleep. At the funeral, I saw my parents for the first time in over a year. They looked older, tired. My mother had more gray hair. My father's shoulders seemed permanently hunched. They tried to approach me. I didn't walk away, but I didn't embrace them either. I stood my ground. "Madison," my mother said, tears already streaming down her face. "Can we talk, please?" "What's left to say?" I asked, not cruelly, just honestly. "That we're sorry, that we know we failed you, that we're trying to do better." "I appreciate that," I said. "I hope you do better, for yourselves. But that doesn't change what happened. That doesn't give me back the years I lost." My father cleared his throat. "Your grandmother left you something, in her will. She wanted you to have it specifically." After the service, the lawyer read the will. My grandmother had left me $20,000 with a specific note, for my granddaughter Madison, who gave everything to family and received nothing in return. This is not payment. It's celebration. Use it for joy, not obligation. You've earned the right to be selfish. The money came with one more thing. A letter. "My dearest Madison," it read. "I've watched you give pieces of yourself away your whole life, hoping someone would finally see your worth. I saw it. I always saw it. I'm proud of you for finally walking away. Some families must be loved from a distance. That's not cruelty. That's survival. Live your life, my darling girl. Live it loud and full and selfishly. You've earned that right. With all my love, Grandma." I cried reading it. Not sad tears, but grateful ones. Someone had seen me. Someone had understood. At the reception after the funeral, Ryan approached me. He looked different, humbler somehow, worn down by reality. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "I mean that. You built a life that's actually yours. I'm still trying to figure out who I am when I'm not being propped up by someone else." It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. "I hope you figure it out," I said. And I meant it. Not because I wanted a relationship with him, but because I genuinely wished him well. From a distance. 2 years after the confrontation, on a random Tuesday evening, Elias and I sat on our back porch watching the sunset. Charlie was asleep at our feet. The house smelled like the lasagna we'd made together for dinner. "Do you ever regret it?" Elias asked, reading my mind like he often did. Cutting them off? Not reconciling? I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "I regret the years I spent invisible. I regret believing that love meant erasure. But walking away, setting boundaries, demanding to be seen as a whole person instead of a resource?" I shook my head. "That's the best decision I ever made." "Even though it cost you your family?" "They stopped being my family long before I stopped trying to be their daughter," I said. The only difference is I finally admitted it out loud. He squeezed my hand. For what it's worth, I'm glad you did. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. You know what the funny thing is? I said. I thought standing up for myself would make me bitter, angry, resentful, but it did the opposite. I'm happier now than I've ever been. Lighter, free. That's because you're not carrying them anymore. Exactly. I looked at him, this man who'd seen me when I was invisible, who'd given me permission to matter. They say blood is thicker than water, but they forget the full quote. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, Elias finished. Right. The family you choose will always matter more than the family that chose to use you. I smiled. I chose you. I chose me. And that makes all the difference. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. We made the last payment today. The debt is paid. Can we talk now? I showed Elias. He raised an eyebrow. What are you going to say? I thought about it for a moment, then typed. The debt is paid. Thank you. I wish you well, but I've built a life that works without you in it. I hope you understand. I hit send and then turned off my phone. Done? Elias asked. Done, I confirmed. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. Inside the house, our life waited, uncomplicated by obligation, unmarred by resentment, untethered to people who couldn't see my worth. I'd sent my parents a wedding invitation disguised as legal papers demanding repayment. They'd paid every cent, and in the process, I'd gotten something far more valuable than money. I'd gotten myself back. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so beautiful, so peaceful, so genuinely yours that the people who tried to diminish you can't even touch it. If my story helped even one person set a boundary, walk away from a toxic situation, or demand to be seen as more than a resource, then it was worth sharing. You don't owe anyone your life just because they gave you life. You don't owe endless sacrifice just because you share DNA, and walking away isn't cruelty when staying would destroy you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for everyone involved, is to let go. I let go, and I've never looked back. That's my story. That's my truth. And I'm finally, completely, beautifully free.